Folks, we're back. This is Steve Sampson, Jim Jones with Veterans in Politics. Today we have an extraordinary guest, Steve Wolfson, Clark County District Attorney. Before we get to Mr. Wolfson, Jim, you have any rants?
No, actually, I don't. Okay. I really, honestly don't have any rants other than it's not a rant. Steve, thanks for coming in.
Oh, sure.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for the introduction. Extraordinary.
Yeah.
That's a lot to live up to, Mr. Sampson.
But I wanted to make a public service announcement. This year alone, Veterans in Politics lost 3 people. Stanley Washington, who hit his head on the sink and passed away. Wes Brummett, U.S. Marine, who passed away of COVID. And unfortunately, a couple days ago, Rolando Larraz.
Oh, you're kidding.
Who
I didn't know
who
that.
I've known for 24 years. Rolando is the person that actually got me involved in radio after a comment made by Oscar Goodman, who in 2004, Oscar Goodman told me, stay in the media, stay alive.
Yep.
And Rolando in 2005 offered me a position to be co-host for Face the Tribune. Mm-hmm. And that's how I actually got into radio. It was because of Rolando Larraz. Rolando always stood up for the Constitution and the right for people to say whatever they want. He quoted, I might not agree with your opinion, but I'll fight to the death for you to say it. He was an extreme constitutionalist. The First Amendment, a Cuban refugee is what he used to call himself. I'm an old Cuban refugee. Rolando is a good-hearted person, and I love the guy. I've known him a long time, and we have our ups and downs, but we always seem to come back right. and figure out how we could be friends again.
Right.
So, and I feel very sorry for his sister Pearlie, who has to go through all this grief right now. But Rolando, we're thinking about you, and let's do a moment of silence. Okay.
May I say something?
Sure, sir.
Well, I'm going to go kind of backwards. I didn't know until just a minute ago that Rolando had passed away. It must have been pretty recent.
A couple days ago.
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. Rolando was a friend. Last time I talked to him was a few months ago because he wrote something in his paper that I disagreed with, and I called him up and I told him. He was very respectful. Mm-hmm. He acknowledged that perhaps he should have done a little bit more research. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know he passed until just a minute ago.
Yeah, he was in a coma last week.
Oh, didn't know.
And he COVID took him.
Stanley Washington. Stanley was a friend.
Okay.
I've known Stanley since my days on the city council.
Did you know he passed?
I'm getting there. Yeah,
okay.
I did. Okay. And Stanley would come into my office.
Mm-hmm.
Stanley had a heart of gold. He was always trying to help someone else. Mm-hmm. Stanley was probably in my district attorney's office 5 times. Sometimes he'd bring somebody in. And he passed a few months ago, as you know. I went to his celebration of life. It was at a small church over on the west side.
I didn't even know about it.
On Owens.
Yeah.
You knew about it?
Ministry, I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah, Ministry. Yeah, I forget the last name, but yeah, it's Ministry.
Yeah, and I walked in on Saturday morning at 11 a.m., and I was very surprised that more people weren't there.
I didn't know about it.
There were about 22, 23 people. Mm-hmm. I was the only white guy in the room.
There you go. You stood out.
And I walked in, and I met Stanley's brother and sister, I believe. Mm-hmm. And a number of other people. And I was so glad that I went to his celebration of life because he was always good to me. Yeah. You know, he was controversial.
Yes.
He was a little tough. But I had a fondness for Stanley, and I'm glad I went to his celebration.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Mr. D.A.
I'm sorry about Rolando. I didn't know until just, like I said, a couple minutes ago.
Yeah.
Well, if you find out about a funeral, would you please let me know?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. So, Clark County District Attorney Steve Wolfson, tell us about yourself. I know you've been on the program many times, but for the viewers.
Okay, well, I've been in Las Vegas 41 and a half years. I moved here right out of law school. Okay. My first job was as a young law clerk in the DA's office, 1980.
Okay.
Served as a prosecutor in the DA's office for about 5 years. I was a federal prosecutor for 2 years. By that time, I met my wife, started having a family. And so I went into the private sector. I practiced private criminal defense for 25 years. And I got a little restless about 18, 19 years ago, wanted to do something else. So I ran for city council. I was fortunate enough to win. Jim and I were talking about
the
this.
Rubber meets the road.
Yeah, potholes and
hey, quit stealing my line, Steve.
I was fortunate enough to win a city council seat, Ward 2, out in the west end of the valley.
Yes.
City councilman for 8 years, and then the opportunity came up for me to become the district attorney. Yes. I was appointed 10 years ago next week.
Seemed like yesterday.
Boy, I'll tell you, time flies.
We were at the NAACP watching him.
We were actually talking about
that. So I've been the district attorney now. Next week will be 10 years.
Okay.
Best job in the world.
Why do you want to keep doing this job? Because it's the best job in the world?
Well, it's there's some unfinished business.
Okay.
There are projects that I've started that I want to continue to make sure they work. There are smart reforms that I'm working on, that my office is working on. You know, we're coming out of a pandemic.
Right.
And the pandemic took a real hit on the justice system. And notice I didn't say criminal justice system, because there's a whole civil system as well. And, we're coming out of it slowly. But the justice system took a big hit. We have a severe backlog of cases. We have an increase in homicides. Last year was not a good year for the homicides here in Clark County.
How many homicides last year?
I think it was 140, something like that. We have, about 350 to 400 pending murder cases. And that doesn't even talk about the backlog of other cases. But all of the criminal justice partners are working together. The justice court judges, the district court judges, under the leadership of Judge Bell. She's the chief judge in district court. Judge Saragosa, who's the chief judge of justice court. DAs, public defenders, private sector. We put our heads together and we're making some changes because we need to act smart about tackling all these cases. One of your friends just walked in and smiled at me, so I smiled back.
You've been on the program many times, and I know you have an open door policy, and every time I reached out to you, you reach back, and I admire that.
You've been in my office 7 to 10 times,
and
right?
I admire that tremendously. How promptly you are, and very detailed you are when you respond. The last time you came on this program was July of 21, right? About there. And I guess I didn't give you an opportunity to finish the statement, but we were talking about one of the specialty courts, which was the Veterans Treatment Court. Yeah. And you made a comment and said that veterans are no different than anyone else. Did you have a chance to see that clip?
Yes. Please
explain what you meant by that.
I think, it was something that could have been stated a little bit better.
Okay.
Veterans are different. There are different classes of folks, and veterans are a particular class because of what they've been through and what they continue to go through. I think the context I made that statement in is that veterans are no different in the sense that they commit crimes too, just like non-veterans, and nurses, dentists, doctors, lawyers. So they're no different in that respect. But what we have to do is recognize that they may have committed the crime for very unique reasons, whether it's PTSD or whether it's other issues that are unique to that individual. So they are different in that way. That's why we created the Veterans Court. You treat people differently based upon their needs, and veterans have very unique needs.
And I look at when I do a a difference between veterans and law enforcement. When and correct me if I'm wrong, when a law enforcement officer draws his or her weapon and fires his or her weapon, they're automatically taken off the street, right? Paid administrative leave, pending investigation, and they have to go through a psychologist or psychiatrist to make sure that they could come back on the street again. They're mentally
I believe so. I mean, you're talking about a police agency that I don't lead Metro or Henderson, but that's my understanding is they have to be cleared before they can come back.
And when a veteran fires his or her weapon, they're in the fight every single day, sometimes for 7 months, sometimes 2 or 3 tours, which are 7 months to a year each tour, and they don't get the counseling that they need. They're not pulled off the combat zone to go
firing the weapon
seek
once.
Psychological. They're constantly seeing death, destruction. They have to do what they have to do. It means they have to take a life. They have to take a life, and they don't have any psychiatric care until they're ready to come out.
And they come home,
and then we're back in society, and then we wonder, why is this veteran acting all cuckoo for? So in my respect, they are extremely different than the average populace.
I hope you understand the context I made that statement in before.
Right.
And that I think I hopefully have explained what I meant by that. Again, that's why we have a veterans court. That's why a few years ago, when we only had veterans court in district court.
True.
Now, even though Judge Mark Stevens in Henderson, a municipal court judge, was operating his own veterans court.
Marty Hastings, Las Vegas.
Yes, they technically were operating outside
the box,
the Nevada revised statutes. And that was bad. It was bad that it was doing it, but we needed to change the law.
Just in case they get challenged.
Yeah, and that's why I headed up a group. Senator Spearman, Assemblyman Elliot Anderson, when he was in the legislature, we got a bunch of folks together.
You get any Republican legislators in that mix?
I don't remember, actually. Okay. But at the end of the day, this group helped, I believe it was Assemblyman Anderson, sponsor a bill to expand Veterans Court. So now we have all of our courts, district court, municipal court, and justice court. There was a time when if you were charged with a DUI and a domestic battery, you would not be admitted into Veterans Court. That change was supported by the district attorney's office. So there's been more of an expansion of the Veterans Court to allow more people to be considered than ever before.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that, Mr. DA.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a question?
Okay. No, you cannot.
All right. So here's a thing that's been on my mind for a while. And it was actually my brother Steve that brought it up. And I just want your opinion as a DA. I do understand the 14th Amendment. And I understand everybody deserves due process. But at the same time, one of the things that I have an issue with the legal system is that, okay, so when do you decide to prosecute somebody? Because it's the way the legal system is set up right now in this country is it's not like whether the person did it or not, it's whether it can be proved.
Well, it's both.
Is there any way we can change that? Because that's it. Because I feel like sometimes and I'm not accusing you of this, but I'm just saying sometimes I think there's overzealous prosecutors that get the okay from the DA's office to hey, you brought enough evidence, prosecute it. And then on the other side, it's like the lawyer knows darn well that the guy committed the crime, but he understands that they don't have enough proof to actually, so they muddy the waters.
Well, our ethical obligation is to seek justice, not convict. I mean, that's the standard that prosecutors operate. So what is justice? We will not charge a person with a crime if we don't think they committed it, number one. But we have a responsibility that we can only file cases if we can prove it in court. We might think a person committed that crime, but we may also not have enough evidence because our burden of proof in a criminal case is beyond a reasonable doubt. Right. So we may think the person did it, but if we don't have sufficient proof, we would be violating our oath to bring a charge and put that person through the rigmarole of a criminal case, attorney's fees, lose the potential loss of job, jail, etc. If at the end of the day, well, we never thought we had enough proof, right. Sorry. So if we don't think they committed the crime, we're not going to charge them. And if we think they committed the crime but have insufficient evidence, we're not going to charge them. So those are the boundaries in which we operate.
Okay.
Well, since Jim brought up the 14th Amendment, it kind of triggered a question. We've been working on family court since 2016.
You've been
constantly.
You've been a tiger down there, Mr. Sampson.
Because I know
where you're going with this.
I don't understand some of the stuff that goes on down there. Yeah. Family court is a specialty court, correct?
It's not. I don't think it's technically a specialty court. It's a court that is its own creation, if you will. I mean, when I moved to town 40 years ago, there was no family court. Right. The district court judges did divorce cases.
In 93, they developed the family court system.
And that's where they set, which is good. You should have specialization. You should have judges and attorneys that specialize in that area.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
Family court judges are considered civil judges, not criminal, correct?
Well, I think anything that's not criminal is civil, yes. But, just for clarification, we have our district court judges that can handle civil and criminal cases. But then we have the unique family court.
Divorce, custody, child support.
Yes.
So when it comes to contempt of court and jail time is on the table in family court, they call it civil contempt.
Yes.
Not criminal contempt.
Okay.
But a jail cell doesn't know the difference between civil contempt and criminal contempt. You're just locked up. Your rights are surrendered, right? So why is it in criminal court at the RJC, if I can't afford a lawyer and I'm looking at jail time for contempt of court,
you're entitled to a court-appointed lawyer,
court attorney, a public defender. Yeah. But in family court, you don't have that same right. Isn't that a violation of the 14th Amendment?
Wish you would have given me. I wish you would have given me a little advance notice.
I just thought about it.
Let me do some legal research. Yeah. You know, Steve.
No, more than anything, I mean, basically, we're just because obviously, I know Steve understands this stuff more than I do, and I will never pretend to be
part more than I do.
Yeah, to pretend to be an attorney, but we're just asking because of your legal
question. I mean, your point is well taken. Jail is jail.
Jail is jail.
And if a person is in violation of some rule, and a family court judge says, I'm holding you in contempt, I'm going to jail you, shouldn't that person have a lawyer? I mean, the answer is, I don't know, because I don't practice in family court. I mean, I did a few family court cases 30 years ago. But my specialty is not down in family court. Now, if you'd like, I can get the answer for you and get back to you on it. But
this is not a got you question or anything like that.
Sure was. No, you and I, listen, we know each other a long time. It's a fair question. I just don't know the answer.
The other thing that puzzles me in family court is this. The way I read the NRS, only criminal judges could order a litigant to take a drug test. But in family court, they're ordering litigants to take drug tests, which if they had...
Are they ordering them to do it on the spot? Or are they ordering them to do it and then come back for the next hearing? I don't know which one you're talking about. Yes,
they're ordering them to do it sometimes on the spot and sometimes come back for the next hearing.
Yeah.
But they don't have jurisdiction to order a litigant to take a drug test. And if the litigant is smart enough and appeals it, then the Supreme Court will overturn it. But sometimes they're not smart enough to appeal it because the family court judge will say, then I'll deem your urine dirty and you're not going to see your kids. So they hold their kids over their head to force them, kind of intimidate them to take a drug test.
Let me answer it this way. My answer for this question is the same answer as the last question, which is I don't have a specific familiarity with that. Now, I do know, because I have some very good friends that do family law, that it's very common for one spouse to allege the other spouse is a drug user.
Right.
And that all the time. And that person shouldn't have custody of the kids because they're a drug user. Yeah. So it's very common for the accusations to go back and forth. Right. A judge who has to decide who has custody, whether it be sole custody, primary physical, shared custody, whatever, should take into consideration if the person is fit or not. If you're a drug user, you may not be fit. Now, there's all sorts of drugs. There's marijuana, there's cocaine, there's the opioids, etc. Exactly. There's all sorts of things. So I think it's appropriate for a judge to consider things like that. But your question is, should a judge have the right to order a person to do a drug test? Right. I don't know the answer.
If they don't have jurisdiction.
Exactly. I don't know the answer. That's a family court thing. My office has nothing to do with family court.
Except for child support.
That's very different. That's the district attorney's family support division, where we collect unpaid child support. Yeah. And I'm very proud of that division.
I got one last question.
One year ago, sorry, Jim, I'm going to brag a little.
Oh, no, you're fine.
1 year ago, the district attorney family support division collected $130 million.
Really?
In 1 year for the children and the custodial parent here in Las Vegas.
Wow.
It's a lot of money.
There's a lot of litigants don't even know that department in the district attorney exists.
That's exactly right.
So you could collect more if the word gets out.
I'm very proud. And in fact, 10, 11, 12 years ago, the state of Nevada was like 53rd in the country because they consider Puerto Rico and the other territories. Over the last 10 years or so, we've come down to rank 9th nationally.
Oh, wow. Nice.
From like last to 9th. And I give some of the people that work for me all the credit. People don't know the DA's office has a family support division on East Flamingo. I have about 12 lawyers down there and almost 300 staff people.
Wow.
And you know what? We work with veterans. We work with ex-felons because what we want is people to pay their support.
Right.
It's good for the kids. It's good for the custodial parent. And we don't want to jail them. Okay? We want to work with them and we help them along the way. Sometimes, if they don't make their payments, a warrant is issued and they're arrested. Okay?
Or their driver's license taken.
That's problematic. That's exactly right. But I'm very proud of the work we do down there because we collect so much money for those kids in Clark County.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Mm-hmm. That's my staff that does it. I'm just their boss. I'm just their boss, Steve.
I think you do it.
Hold on, but you're the boss, but you're the one that makes sure everything runs smooth. Right?
I'm very fortunate to have such good people that work in the DA's office.
No, I think you do a good job. That's not an official endorsement, by the way.
Okay.
You still got to show up to the endorsement.
Still have to earn it. Fair enough.
Anyway, so this is why I wanted to get to it real quick. This is a broader question. I just wanted more like your philosophy on it. There's something I've been thinking about for a while now. Now that I've switched careers. Okay, so the DA's office is considered nonpartisan.
No.
It's a nonpartisan race?
You're talking about the DA himself?
No. I'm talking about to run for the office.
No, it's a partisan race. Judges are nonpartisan.
Okay.
But the district attorney, governor,
why would the DA's office be a partisan race, though?
Now, I'll disagree. I think they should all be partisan.
Well, I don't think the district attorney should be partisan. And let me tell you why. Most of the decisions I make are nonpartisan type issues.
Right.
And, as the district attorney, I represent all people in Clark County.
Right.
A lot of people think that, because I'm a Democrat, I should only promote Democratic issues. No, I represent Republicans and independents as well.
Well, look, we're Republicans, and we invite everybody.
Yeah. So
I need to stop you real quick.
Go ahead.
Let me clarify my statement before everybody gets confused on what I said. The reason why I said that I think every race should be considered partisan is not because if you're a registered Democrat, you should only do the right stuff for Democrats or Republicans. But my huge thing now is full disclosure in government. So when I get all these nonpartisan races, but I know darn well that person is a Republican, like either do away with political parties, period, or have to announce who your party affiliation is.
Without being asked?
Without being asked. And that goes for judges too. And I have a pretty hardcore stance on campaign donations too. If Steve's running for office, I should be able to give Steve $1 million.
Oh, this is a cap, you mean?
As long as he discloses it.
Yeah.
So then I give him $1 million. He discloses it in his C&E report, right?
Yeah.
And then I own a business and Steve votes on legislation that I'm pushing, then people can look at it and go, like, yeah, look, it was basically a bribe. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You were saying something.
Yeah, sorry, that was a little
the contribution and expense reports are there for a reason. It's to be able to see who is giving what candidate money and support. I think it's a good thing to see who is supporting a particular candidate. What a lot of people have issue with is what is called dark money or outside money or political action money. A lot of times races are funded solely by people and committees and organizations from across the country.
Yeah.
They don't have a real interest in Nevada. I believe that Nevada should support Nevadans. And I'm not saying you can never accept a contribution from somebody who lives in Arizona.
Right.
But the bulk of your support should be from Nevada. That's what I believe.
Cool.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I have a problem with the McCain-Feingold bill. Because, I mean, they were well-intentioned when they came up with it because they were supposedly trying to get money out of politics, which is never going to happen. Let's just be honest. So then it created all these political action committees, the 501c3s.
And one of the real problems is that a political action committee has to register, okay, and there has to be a name put to that.
Right.
But a political action committee can give money to another PAC. They can give money to another PAC, and it can take 4 to 6 to 8 organizations to then funnel that money to wherever it goes. And to trace the origin can be sometimes very difficult. And I don't think that's good for the voting public. The voting public should know who's supporting a candidate.
So that brings me to this question. In the last session, we proposed a bill called Remove or Retain.
Judges.
Judges.
Because you and I have spoken about
this.
Yeah.
And Dr. Robin Titus, who was the minority whip at the time up in Northern Nevada, sponsored the bill. And that bill went to, I believe there was a Judiciary Committee, but it was a committee that Brittany Miller was chair, and the bill never even got out of committee. It didn't even get a hearing, which I was very sad by that. The purpose of the Remove or Retain bill, the argument is this. Judges don't have, you can't recall judges based on the Supreme Court ruling from the Catherine Ramsey case. And they were trying to recall Catherine Ramsey from North Las Vegas Municipal Court.
I liked Catherine. I knew her when she was a young DA. I knew her when she was a city prosecutor. I knew her when she was a judge. She's passed on now. But I liked Catherine.
Yes. God rest her soul. So you can't recall judges. Judges don't have term limits.
Correct.
And I thought that's sad too. Judges have a thing called judicial immunity. Anything they do on the bench, you can't sue them unless it's a federal violation, you take them to federal court for whatever the reason might be. So anyways, so the room, and a lot of attorneys don't like running against judges because they have their caseload. This is how they put the lights on in the house. This is how they feed their family.
Absolutely.
And judges have friends, and they feel, they might be blackballed or 86th or whatever, or looked down upon because they run against this judge's friend, and then they have cases.
I don't know that it's unique to just judges, but it certainly exists with judges. I mean, what about somebody who wants to run against a legislator?
Because it's all, partisan. Judges are nonpartisan. So
okay, but if I live in a particular legislator's district and I have a business in that district and I want to run against that legislator, and let's say I lose, that legislator could pass legislation to hurt my business.
Yeah, but in that respect, to be honest, Steve, you got 42 legislators you have to convince.
Good point.
But when a judge is only that one person.
Valid point.
That's why I want a tribunal or jury in family court, because of that one person thing.
It's a valid point.
So here we go. So the way the remove or retain bill comes into play is to get rid of bad judges. Because if you're a good judge, you shouldn't have to worry about that.
You're going to be voted to retain.
Yeah, if you're a good judge, people will vote for you.
So, what is your question to me?
Let me explain the remove or retain bill first. Okay. So, if remove gets more votes than retain,
you're removed.
Then the end of the year, the seat's vacated.
Yeah.
Nevada Judicial Selection Committee. Yeah. Start taking applications, sends 3 names to the governor. Governor picks a name to fill that seat, and then that person runs for retention in the following election year. I want to know, as a district attorney, how do you feel about that?
Well,
would you support something
listen,
like that?
I have been, like I said, I think at the beginning of this interview, in town for 41 and a half years. I know many of the judges. Many of the judges are my friends. Although we've grown to be so big now, I don't know all the judges anymore, but I know a lot of them. And I think the vast majority of our judges are good judges. I believe that. I believe generally the system works when you take it to the people. The people are, in theory, educated, and they make an educated decision on who to vote for.
That's a huge theory. We're working on it.
I haven't finished. I don't think it works all the time.
True.
Because I don't think we do enough to educate our voters on who to vote for. Not just judges, district attorneys, governors. I use the expression that, Jane Smith, who is struggling to feed her family, her kids are now out of school because of the pandemic. She had to quit her job to be at home with the kids. Father took on 2 jobs just to support the family. They're not thinking about who's running for judge. They're thinking about, how am I going to pay my electric bill, my water bill? Okay. And so we don't do a good enough job educating the voters on who to vote for. We're getting a little better.
How could we educate them better?
I think that we need to put more money in that effort to educate. I don't think our private sector steps up enough.
True.
We have a lot of very, very successful.
We step up?
Who? You mean veterans in politics?
Veterans in politics.
Oh, sure. You guys, every year you do an endorsement process. I participated for years. Yeah. The Review Journal does something. John Ralston now has become active with things. But we don't do enough. So how do we do more? I think that the public sector has to step up and put some money up to educate the voters. Have more forums. Have more things to educate the public, okay? But to your question, okay, I don't know is the answer. I don't know if that would be a better system, because you're still requiring the voters to make a decision whether to remove or retain.
But here's a caveat.
Let me finish, please, okay? Judges are bottom ballot races.
True.
In a few months, we're going to have a primary, and then a few months later, we're going to have a general. We've got senator, congressman, governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general. Okay, and then we get down to the judges. Okay? I guarantee you that I shouldn't say guarantee. I don't know that there'd be that much difference in whether we have an educated voter who's going to check a box, remove or retain, versus a name. I think in concept, it might be a good idea.
Right.
But a lot of other states have retention elections that, what's it called, the Tennessee plan or something like that? Missouri plan, yeah. Well, I was close, okay. Where I think they have retention or not. I would like to look at some data to see how effective those kinds of elections, and there's different versions, different states have different versions. So I am open-minded to it because I want what's best for our citizens. But I don't know if it would be any better.
Well, here's the thing. We have some bad judges, in my opinion.
We have bad lawyers. We have a lot of things.
That are still in the seat because they didn't draw an opponent.
True.
And this would allow them to face the public without
everybody would be up for removal or retain. Versus if you're an incumbent, you don't get a challenger, you're not on the ballot.
Right. You're not on the ballot, and then you win automatically. One vote, you win. And I think that's ridiculous. Yeah. At least this gives the public a chance to either keep them or not.
Makes sense.
So that's
But if you're asking me whether I'm going to support it, I'd want to learn a little bit more about how other states work it and see if it is a good thing.
Sure.
But it makes sense what you just said.
Well, thank you so much for that. Is that a compliment?
Yeah.
All right.
Because you don't always make sense. One for Wolfson. Listen, I don't always make sense either.
So, Mr. DA, you've answered all the questions that I
We didn't talk about Veterans Court very much.
No, but we did talk about...
We talked about veterans.
Yeah.
We talked about some of the positive changes in the last few years. I think the system does a pretty good job of recognizing there are people that commit very violent crimes.
Absolutely.
And there are the serious offenders, and public safety is still the number one thing on people's minds. Do you have children? Okay, I'm looking at somebody in the room here, and you care about your children. You want them to be safe when they go to school. You want to, when you go to the supermarket and you get out of your car, you don't want to get mugged and things like that. And I think the system...
So what do you think about defunding the police then?
I think it's ridiculous.
Okay.
As
soon as you brought that up,
I think it's ridiculous because if you look at the cities that have made certain changes to their police departments, the crime rates are up. Let me give you an example. I think it's Seattle, I'm not sure, and I was just told this the other day. And a lot of modern cities, big cities I should say, are having trouble recruiting police officers. And I think it's Seattle that actually offered an increase in pay to their entry-level police officers and a signing bonus. You come work for us, we're going to give you a signing bonus. You know how many people applied? 0. So I think that there is room for smart reform.
Right. Yeah.
And I try and do that. I have a number of programs that I say come under the umbrella of smart reform. But defunding the police, absolutely not.
So, I guess my last question for you is, Steve already touched on it a little bit, was what keeps you going? You've been very successful in your career, and you're a very knowledgeable guy. Like, you could just go on your daily bike rides and stay in Hawaii or whatever you wanted to do at this point.
He loves Hawaii.
I know.
Your gala is every year.
I know. He loves Hawaii.
That's why I brought Hawaii up.
Jim, let me answer your question, okay?
But you keep plugging away, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. First of all, I think you complimented me a couple of times there, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't need this job. I could do other things. And a year ago or so, I thought about other options because people approach you and they say, what about this and what about that? First of all, I love being the district attorney in this community. It's an honor. It's an honor and a privilege to serve. Number 2, serving the public. I've been now an elected person for about 17 years. I was the city councilman for 8 and now DA 10, so actually it's 18 years. And I enjoy serving the public. I enjoy going to work every day. As I mentioned to Steve, I've got some unfinished projects. We have a pre-charge diversion program, which has been very successful. I'm very involved with the Hope for Prisoners program. We have our own offshoot of that. It's called Hope for Second Chances. But to get back to the point that I was making with you, we need to focus, which we're doing, on the violent offenders and the repeat offenders. 10% of the criminals commit 90% of the crimes. True. So that's where the focus has to be, and especially now with our homicide rate up. You know, Metro's solvability is at 91% on homicides. It's like the highest. No, just in general. Okay. They solve 91% of their homicide cases. It's the highest in the country. Oh, wow. And those cases come to my office to prosecute.
Are people actually guilty?
I believe most of them are. You know, but I also have the conviction review unit, which I created 6-7 years ago. First conviction review unit in the state of Nevada.
Could you explain what that does?
Yes. When somebody maintains their innocence, in other words, from day one, they said they did not commit the crime, but they go to a jury trial and they're convicted, or they plead guilty and they're convicted, but newly discovered evidence comes forth. The best example is DNA. And it shows that the person didn't commit the crime. And they've been in prison 10, 15, 20 years. I established a unit to review those claims of innocence. And DeMarlo Berry was the first person that I caused the exoneration of, because this young man was convicted of a murder, which I believe he did not commit. And so I'm very proud of the conviction review unit. Other states call it conviction integrity unit. It's the same thing. And we review cases when there's newly discovered evidence which wasn't available at the time.
Yeah.
We don't sit as a 13th juror. We don't second guess what a jury did, because our jury system is there for a reason. But after the fact, if new evidence comes forward
that the jury didn't have,
that the lawyers didn't have, we review it, and if we believe a person was wrongly convicted, we do something about it.
Do they have civil penalties that go on?
Yes. Our legislature created a law which provides for the compensation, and then there's the civil court system where they can go in and get...
is it $1 million a year or something like that?
No, it's not $1 million. I don't remember what it is. Let me tell you a quick little story, and then I think our time's up. Okay. I told you I'm involved with the Hope for Prisoners program. Right. Been involved, for a number of years now. I went to one of their meetings 2 weeks ago, and I met the class that was getting ready to graduate the next day, 30 people that were in phase 1 of the Hope for Prisoners program. And I'm talking to people in the room, and I meet this one guy. I'm just going to say his first name, Terrence. Terrence tells me he just got out of prison after serving 29 years. He had a life sentence. And it was, he was paroled, and he just got out 2 weeks before. And he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, "You know what, Mr. Wolfson, I'm not bitter." It struck me in such a way that I attended his graduation the next day. I was one of the speakers. And I found out the next day that he was getting married the following day. It's a man that spent 29 years in prison, African-American man. And I met his fiancée, who he's getting married the next day. I sent him a marriage gift. I sent him a little check. Oh, wow. Because I felt so honored to meet this man who said he wasn't bitter. And he's in the Hope for Prisoners program right now and doing pretty good.
Wow.
So
29 years in prison is no joke.
No.
29 years doing anything is no joke.
Yeah, right. I've got a couple of 29 years behind me, so I know what you're talking about.
So let's move fast forward to your re-election.
Okay.
What are you doing?
I'm working.
Okay.
I'm working. I announced my reelection last August. I've got great community support. Okay. I'm raising money because elections require you to raise money. I'm moving forward. The filing period is in just a few weeks. Right. And that's when we find out who officially files. Yeah. And that's when we'll all find out in every race. Right. But my campaign's going very well. Okay. I'm doing a lot of things. I'm out in the community and doing what I need to do to get reelected.
Okay. Jim, you have anything else for Mr. Wolfson?
No, other than I just want to say on air, because we were off air when we said it, one of the things that I like is the discussion that you and I had, and I just want to make sure that it's on the air too, is that I think you and I both agree politically on at least one thing, right? If you're a little right of center, that's okay. A little left of center, that's fine too. The extremes, we need to leave that alone. And I think you do a really good job of balancing both of those.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I agree that I think nationwide our country is in a place where it's never been before because too many people are too far on either side.
Either side, yeah.
And we really need to come together because, I mean, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but we're all Americans. And we can disagree on things, right, but we need to do what's best for our country, the people that live in this country, and on an individual basis in our community here. So, yeah.
We should make a trip down to the Marine Corps League.
Marine Corps League?
Yes.
Where's that?
Spring in Orville.
Yeah.
Oh, what is the Marine Corps League?
We have a bunch of Marines coming there. And
it's right across from American Shooters.
Yeah, and is it like a club, you mean?
Yeah.
Invite me.
Okay. All right.
I'll probably be the least fit because you Marines are pretty tough guys and ladies. And ladies.
Yeah, look how skinny I am, and I go in there. They're fine with me. So,
Mr. District Attorney, I want to thank you so much for coming on the program, and I know you didn't have to, and I want to thank you for doing that and explaining the comments from last year. I really appreciate that. Sure. If you could look into the camera and tell folks why they should go back to the voting booth and put you in office and your point of contact, and Mark is going to zoom in on you.
Sure. Well, thank you, Steve. I've been on your show a number of times. It's a pleasure. I'm Steve Wolfson. I'm the Clark County District Attorney, and I am running for re-election. I hope to earn your support and earn your vote in this coming primary election and potentially a general election. You can reach me at my website. You can call me. I have a very open door policy, and I will sit down with anybody who wants to talk to me about my re-election. So thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on the program, Mr. Wolfson.
Sure.
Folks, that's Steve Wolfson, the Clark County District Attorney's Office. I've known Mr. Wolfson since, I think, 1998, when he used to roam the old RJC.
Yeah.
And
the good old days,
the good old days. And he has an open door policy. He's always thorough. He's always respectful. And one thing I really enjoy about this district attorney is that he's not scared to come on anybody's program and talk about the issues. So that's huge for anybody in elected office, that they're not scared. They got a backbone. And a lot of candidates and a lot of elected officials out there don't have that. So you guys need to get that. Maybe take a lesson from Mr. Wolfson. This is Steve Sands and Jim Jones for Veterans in Politics. Until next time.